Today I'll be looking at 3 expenses that are destroying retirement plans faster than ever before and why you could be at risk in 2025. Over many years working with retirees, I've watched these same 3 expenses consistently force clients to make difficult lifestyle adjustments that they never expected to make, and that's exactly why I'm making this video today. I want to expose these budget-killing expenses and show you how to protect your retirement from their impact. So let's get right into it. Now, when I sat down to make a list of the big expenses that I'm seeing kind of blow up budgets, the first thing that comes to mind is healthcare expenses. But healthcare expenses are obvious. This is one that for most retirees isn't going to come out of left field, and you're going to be shocked that you're spending more on healthcare as you age. And it's something that we talk a lot about on this channel as well. So I'm not going to put that one on this list, even though, you could know it's definitely a big part of retirement expenses. But what I want to do instead in this video is focus on the expenses that are not obvious, but are highly problematic, and they're the ones that I'm seeing more and more over time. And, they're especially the ones that I'm seeing that are kind of derailing people's retirement plans. So with that, the first one that comes to mind is helping struggling family members. This could be something like adult children moving back home, or even just adult children constantly hitting up mom and dad for $5,000 here or $10,000 there. And, it's always some kind of excuse for why things aren't going their way and they just need a little more money. Worse, what I've seen is parents having to shell out thousands, sometimes, no exaggeration here, hundreds of thousands of dollars on rehab and legal fees for lawyers and fines and all of this because their kids had substance abuse problems and they got into a lot of legal trouble. One thing that I think surprised me when I sat down to think about this was how common this actually was and how damaging it really can be to retirees' budgets. What this leads to is depleted savings and derailed retirement plans if you're not on top of it. And I gotta be honest, this is, out of the 3 expenses, this is going to be the hardest one to come up with a solution for, but I'm going to give you guys some advice on what I've seen generally work. So, the first thing that's going to happen if you are not retired yet and you want to prevent this is acknowledge as honestly as you can the nature of this relationship and the risk that it might pose to you in retirement. And remember, at least in my experience, I've never ever seen a child stop their behavior until they were just forced to and they had no other choice. I'm not a professional counselor, so I don't want to get too far into my opinions on this because I have no background in that. But the first part of the solution to me is, if you know this is the situation and you're honest with yourself, you need to start speaking with a counselor and they can help you develop a strategy for how you're going to cut your kids off and stop enabling them. And it's going to help you feel less guilty and provide you more support as you do this. Now, the second part of the equation, and this is where your financial advisors can help you with, is coming up with a plan of dealing with this financially. I think the easiest route is making your financial advisor the bad guy. And that comes down to saying, okay, I'm now retired. My money is invested a very specific way, and I'm living off of a fixed income now. I don't just have $5,000 or $10,000 or $20,000 to give you because my advisor is in charge of that money and he's giving me a fixed income every month. If that isn't maybe extreme enough for you, and if you really need stronger guardrails to do this, then you could go even further and you can talk to an estate attorney and you can set up an irrevocable trust for asset protection. And that's going to legally separate the assets from you and your child. And what you could do is you could retain access to the trust income. So you will set it up so that you're always getting income from the trust, but you're not going to have the ability to take the principal. So it's going to be protected from your profligate child, and it would also be protected from creditors. So in essence, you're the income beneficiary, and it's going to ensure that your needs are met, but that somebody can't really take advantage of. And you can even throw in provisions for healthcare and things like that. So it's not as if you had some long-term care event and you needed more money that you couldn't access it. Estate attorneys are very thoughtful when they set these up. So that's another potential solution for you. Now, after seeing how these expenses can devastate even the most carefully planned retirement budget, you might be wondering if your own retirement plan is at risk. What I've learned from working with hundreds of retirees is that most people aren't struggling with saving enough. They're really struggling with protecting their savings from these budget-killing expenses. And the truth is, retirement budget survival isn't about having a massive nest egg. It's about understanding if your plan is properly protected against these specific threats. And that's why I've created a free questionnaire to help give you personalized advice for your specific situation. After you complete it, I'll personally create a video analyzing your situation and show you exactly how to plan better for your retirement. All you have to do is click the link below to take the questionnaire. Now, back to the video. So this leads us into our second budget-killing expense, and that is the cost of keeping up with hobbies. This one might be a little more obvious, right? Expensive hobbies can drain finances faster than anticipated. And, you could think of things like country club memberships and boats. And I've definitely seen expenses like that kind of kill the retirement budget. But the two that I'm seeing more often over the years are one, RVs, and two, planes. And here I mean little prop planes that, you're a flying hobbyist and you have a little prop plane. And it's always the one that I get it. I'm sure it's really cool, but I think I have a different personality than the guys flying them around. The first thing that always pops in my mind is, man, these are the exact planes that you always see on the news that their pilots are crashing. And it's kind of funny because you'll point this out to the plane hobbyists, and to a T, every one of them always says, oh yeah, but 90% of them is caused by pilot error. And I'm thinking, right, I'm sure, right? Every single pilot is thinking the exact same thing. It's like how 90% of drivers think they're above average drivers, right? But anyway, it's cool. If this is your hobby, I get it. I'm sure it's a fun hobby. If you have a death wish, right? But let's assume that is you, okay? And you've got, maybe an RV or a plane. The issue here is that, people assume these hobbies are going to be predictable expenses. And what happens is they often overlook irregular or hidden costs. And there can be huge maintenance costs involved in these. You've got storage, you've got fuel costs, massive cost of repair sometimes, and then a really huge hit in depreciation. So when you turn around and you want to sell an RV or a plane, oftentimes it's going to be for a fraction of what you paid for it. And what this leads to is overspending on lifestyle luxuries, and it's going to create budget shortfalls, and it's probably going to force you to have to cut other essentials if you really want to keep this hobby. So now the question is, what can you do about it, especially prior to retirement? And the thing that I have my clients do is you need to audit your hobby related spending before retirement. You need to know exactly how much this hobby is really costing you. We don't have to get rid of your hobbies, but we need to put spending limits around them. So what we're going to do is create a budget, and we're going to have a discretionary spending limit for these activities. And you're going to have to follow it. So what does that mean? Well, maybe in 1 year, if you blow your budget because you had some big expenses that you had to account for, that means the next year you're probably going to have to travel less or fly less or whatever it is. I'll give you guys an example of one limit that we came up with a client when I was out in Arizona. This guy, he wasn't that wealthy. I mean, wealth is relative, right? But he wasn't that wealthy, and he had a private plane, and he loved this thing, and, he was a hobbyist, and it was destroying his budget. And he, after so many years in retirement, had spent hundreds of thousands of dollars on this hobby, and we had to sit down and have a heart-to-heart with him. And The limit that we came up with was, okay, look, at age 70, you're just going to get rid of the plane. This example is saying, look, one thing you might think through is, oh, I've got an RV, but I'm going to get rid of that at a certain age, and that total expense is just going to go away. And that might be a fine way of dealing with this for your retirement budget, but also you definitely need to have a budget in place and cut back on expenses when you go over that. It's not good enough just saying you're going to sell it at some point in the future. Now, let's move on to the third budget killing expense, and I think some people might be surprised by this one, but this is one that I'm really, maybe over the last 5 years, has just seen blow retirement budgets up, and that is pet care. Almost everyone underestimates the true cost of owning and caring for pets over time. Most people, when they put this in their budget, they just think, oh, it's a small expense, and they'll put in $50, maybe $100 a month that they're spending on pets, which is ridiculous. Nobody only spends $100 on their pets, guys. I mean, just think about if you have a long-haired breed like a golden retriever or something, just grooming alone. I mean, every 4 to 6 weeks, you have to get them groomed. The baseline, I mean, depending on where you live, is probably $50, but then there's always add-ons to this. Then you've got tips. So basically, you can't walk out of the groomer without spending close to $100. But that's just one small ongoing expense. The things that really blow up the pet budget are the doggy dental. It's always like, oh, I need some kind of dental procedure, dental cleanings. You've got shots, x-rays, and then heaven forbid that you have to have a surgery. Surgeries for animals now cost thousands of dollars, and most people feel really guilty if they don't get them. And what this leads to is you're going to have to make difficult choices between paying for pet care and other retirement priorities, and there's going to be this massive emotional stress. I've really seen it. So what's the solution here? All right, the solution is prior to retirement, you need to do the same thing what we talked about with the hobbies, is go in and actually do a pet-related audit. All right, so number one, get a good grasp of what you're actually spending on your pet. Number two, what we like to do is include a pet care fund. Generally, that might be about $5,000, and you kind of just top this off every year. This way, if you get into the situation where you've got to pay for a surgery, you've got that money sitting there. Couple other things to think about here. I would do a cost-benefit analysis on pet insurance and wellness plans. Sometimes those can be worth it, though generally what we find is just having that pet care fund there is going to be a better use of your money, and you'll probably spend less than the ongoing expense of insurance, but maybe not always, so something else to consider. Finally, as you progress through retirement, once your furry little friend passes on, maybe instead of getting a new one, you might consider doing something like volunteering at a pet shelter. You might find that volunteering gives you the same kind of emotional satisfaction, and it lets you be around pets, something that you like, but you're not going to have the financial burden or even the time commitment of taking care of this pet. And I think that becomes especially important as you age. All right, well, hopefully you guys are now better equipped to deal with these 3 budget-killing expenses that are derailing retirements. Unfortunately, these expenses are just the visible part of what's actually destroying retirement plans, however. Recently, I've had a client whose entire 30-year retirement projection was shattered by having to take care of an elderly family member, and they had no idea it was coming. And this fits right into that first category that we discussed. Most retirement calculators either completely miss unexpected or exponential expense increases, which is exactly why traditional budgeting fails in retirement. What I'm seeing in my practice right now should be setting off alarm bells for anyone planning in their retirement. And if this is something that you're worried about, I've put together a short questionnaire that will help identify if your retirement plan is at risk from some of these hidden expenses. After completing it, you'll get immediate access to a personalized video showing exactly how to optimize your retirement. All you have to do is just click the link below to get started, and I'll see you in the next one. Thanks for watching.